Aita for not canceling our long-planned trip because my MIL scheduled surgery at the same time. So here's the situation. My husband David 42M and I Emily 39F have been planning what we call our dream trip for over half a year now. It's a massive 2-week vacation halfway across the world, 27 hours of flights just to get there, planned excursions, everything prepaid. We've both been working high-stress jobs for more than a decade, and in the last 12 years, we've never once taken a real vacation. We've had little weekend getaways, sure, but nothing like this. For the past 6 months, our lives have revolved around saving money, juggling overtime, and planning this trip. We've had countdown calendars. My coworkers even keep joking that I'm going off the grid when I leave. For us, this trip is not just a vacation, it feels like a milestone, almost like a reward for surviving all the chaos of the past decade. Enter my MIL, Carol 70F. Carol has had health problems for a long time, diabetes, mobility issues, and some heart complications. She's not someone who manages her health very well. David's been begging her for years to be more proactive, but she's stubborn and tends to brush things off until they get serious. A couple weeks ago, she announced to us, not asked, that she has scheduled a complicated surgery. And guess what? The surgery date is literally the same week we'll be gone. I thought maybe it was just bad luck until David and I realized something. She absolutely knew our dates. We've talked about this trip nonstop for months. Carol has been rolling her eyes at us every time we mention it, joking that we're abandoning her for fun. So I can't shake the suspicion that she picked these dates on purpose. And before anyone says, well, maybe she had no choice in the timing, let me explain, she did. We later learned from her doctor's office that she had other available dates, but she chose this one because she wanted it done sooner rather than later. Totally fair if that was the only reason. But she didn't even bother to tell us until the date was already booked, and now she's acting shocked that we're not rearranging our lives around it. Here's the kicker. Carol has very little family nearby. Her sister Marlene 68F lives about 40 minutes away, but she doesn't drive anymore. 2 of David's cousins, Lisa 35F and Mike 33M, live in the same area, but they've both made it clear they don't have time to be caretakers. They each have full-time jobs and young kids. Translation, they're bowing out. So naturally, the finger is pointed at us. But here's the problem. If we cancel, we lose thousands of dollars. Flights, hotels, tours, everything is either prepaid or non-refundable. It would financially crush us to back out now. And emotionally, honestly, I think it would break us. We've poured so much energy into this one sliver of freedom, the idea of scrapping it makes me want to cry. David feels torn. On one hand, it's his mom. On the other, he knows how much this trip means to us. He's convinced, like I am, that part of Carol's motivation was to stir guilt and keep us tethered. She's done similar guilt trip things in the past, like announcing health scares during holidays or picking fights right before family milestones. Now Carol is calling me selfish for not insisting we cancel. She literally said, if I die on that table, you'll regret sipping cocktails on the beach instead of being here. That one cut deep. My SGL David's sister Jennifer, 44F, who lives across the country, called and said I need to step up because family comes before fun. Easy for her to say when she's not the one being asked to miss out. Here's the reality. We can't afford to cancel. Carol had other surgery dates. David and I desperately need this break. And yet, the guilt is real. Am I really the villain here? Should I feel bad for putting my marriage, my sanity, and our hard-earned money first? So Reddit, Aita for refusing to cancel our once-in-a-lifetime trip because my MIL scheduled surgery during the same time? Update. My MIL scheduled surgery during our dream trip, and we didn't cancel. Hi everyone, it's Emily again. I wanted to give an update because a lot has happened since my original post. So first, to clarify, yes, David and I went on the trip. We didn't cancel. We went back and forth about it for weeks, had late-night arguments about what was right, and at one point I almost caved because the guilt was eating me alive. But David pulled me aside one night and said, if we cancel this, we're just teaching my mom that she can control us with guilt forever. That sentence stuck. We left for our trip. The day before our flight, Carol gave us one last guilt trip speech. She told David he was choosing beaches over his own mother and told me I was pulling him away from family. I stayed quiet, but inside I was boiling. David calmly told her, Mom, you had other dates. We'll check in, but we're not canceling our lives every time you make a decision. We flew out. Honestly, the trip was incredible. I don't even have words for it. It was the first time in years that I felt like I could breathe. David looked like a new man, too. We hiked, ate ridiculous amounts of food, met new people, even slept in without alarms. We FaceTimed Carol twice during recovery. She looked weak, but she was being cared for. Turns out cousin Lisa did step up after all, even though she swore she couldn't. Marlene helped too, mostly by just sitting with her and keeping her company. They figured it out. Here's the part that shocked me. Carol survived just fine. No complications. Recovery was tough, but not life or death. When we got back, she gave us the cold shoulder, refused to see us for a week, then finally allowed David to come over. She told him I had poisoned him against her and that I was selfish. He defended me, thankfully. He said, "Mom, Emily didn't make this decision. I did. We're married, and I'm not going to let you treat her like the scapegoat." Jennifer Sil also chimed in from across the country, saying we abandoned Carol. I told her flat out that if she cared so much, maybe she should have flown in to help. Radio silence after that. The cousins, though, they were surprisingly understanding. Lisa even texted me saying, "I get it now. Your MIL puts everything on you too. It wasn't fair." That meant a lot. Now, months later, Carol has thought a bit. She still makes snide comments. "Guess you had more fun than you would have had helping me." But she knows she can't weaponize her health against us the same way anymore. David and I are stronger because of it, honestly. We set a boundary, stuck to it, and the world didn't fall apart. So was it messy? Yes. Did people talk? Absolutely. But in the end, we realized this. If we'd canceled, Carol would have expected us to keep doing it for the rest of her life. And then where does that end? Our marriage would have always come second. I'm not saying it was an easy decision, but I don't regret it. Second update final. My MIL scheduled surgery during our dream trip, and we didn't cancel. Hey everyone, it's Emily again. I figured I'd close this out since enough time has passed, and I finally have some perspective on everything. It's been about 6 months since our trip and Carol's surgery, and honestly, things are different now. Some for better, some for worse. Carol's recovery went fine, thankfully. Physically, she's doing okay, but emotionally she's still holding on to a lot of resentment. For the first couple months, every time we visited she'd drop little digs like, "I hope you enjoyed your vacation while I was suffering." Or, "Some people put family first." At first, David and I would just ignore it, but eventually he got tired of the passive aggressiveness. One night, he told her point blank, "Mom, I'm not going to keep coming over if every conversation is just you punishing us for something that's already done. We love you, but we're not living in guilt land forever." And then he walked out. That was the turning point. Since then, Carol has toned it down a bit. She still gets snippy sometimes, but she realized David wasn't bluffing. He really would pull back if she kept it up. Now, our visits are civil. Not warm, but not hostile either. Here's the part one didn't expect. The cousins, especially Lisa, have been amazing. Lisa admitted to me privately that Carol basically assumes David is her built-in caretaker and resents anyone who doesn't enable that. Lisa said she finally saw how much pressure Carol puts on us compared to everyone else. She stepped up more since then, and even Marlene has been pitching in. It feels like the weight isn't 100% on us anymore. Jennifer, my S-Gel, is still salty, though. She rarely calls, and when she does, it's usually just to throw shade about how different we are now. I've stopped engaging. David, too. We both realized her opinion doesn't actually affect our marriage or our day-to-day lives. And speaking of marriage, our relationship is stronger than ever. That trip ended up being a huge reset button for us. For the first time in over a decade, we had a real break from stress. David and I promised each other we'd make our marriage the priority moving forward, not just the endless demands of extended family. It feels liberating to say no, now when something isn't fair. So where does that leave us? Carol survived. The family dynamics are shifting, and we're still together, happier than before. I think the guilt will always sting a little, especially when Carol plays the martyr card, but I know we did the right thing. If I've learned anything, it's this. You can love and support family without setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. And honestly, if we had canceled that trip, I think we'd be stuck in a cycle of resentment and obligation forever. Breaking that pattern was worth every awkward conversation since. Thanks to everyone who gave perspective. It wasn't easy, but I feel like we finally set boundaries that will actually last. Final update months later. Aita for not canceling our trip because my MIL scheduled surgery? Hey Reddit, it's Emily again. It's been about 6 months since everything went down, and I figured I'd give you all the closure you've been asking for. Honestly, I didn't expect this story to spiral the way it did, but now that we're on the other side of it, I can finally talk about what actually happened and how it all shook out. So, if you remember, my husband David 42M and I 39F had a once-in-a-lifetime trip planned. His mom, Carol 70F, decided to schedule her surgery for the exact dates of our trip, despite knowing about it months in advance. Family drama ensued. We didn't cancel, and I promised I'd come back with the aftermath. Well, buckle up, because it's been a ride. The trip, the fallout. First of all, the trip was incredible. Truly one of the most life-changing experiences of my life. David and I got to unplug for the first time in over a decade, and it was like hitting the reset button on our marriage. We came back feeling reconnected, rested, and honestly, like ourselves again. Of course, reality slapped us in the face the moment we landed back home. Carol had gone through her surgery, which thankfully went well, and she was recovering. But oh my God, the passive-aggressive comments started immediately. When we visited her for the first time, she was lying in her recliner, and the first words out of her mouth weren't, "Thank you for coming," or, "I'm glad you're back safe." Nope. It was, "Carol, well, I hope sipping cocktails on the beach was worth abandoning your mother." David squeezed my hand so tightly under the table that I thought he'd cut off my circulation. I just smiled politely, but David said, very calmly, "David, Mom, we're here now. Let's focus on your recovery." She huffed, rolled her eyes, and muttered something about priorities. That pretty much set the tone for the next couple of weeks. The breaking point. About a month after the surgery, David finally snapped. We had gone over to drop off groceries for her, and Carol was in one of her moods. She made some snide remark about how her real daughter, Jennifer, would never have left her alone in her time of need. David just lost it. I've honestly never seen him so firm with her before. He put the grocery bag down, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "David, Mom, I'm done being guilt-tripped. You knew about our trip. You scheduled your surgery anyway. That was your decision. Emily and I will not spend the rest of our lives paying penance for it. If every visit is going to be about how terrible we are, then I'm not coming around anymore." And then he walked out. Just like that. Left me standing there with Carol looking completely stunned. I mumbled something about checking in later and followed him out. That was the turning point. After that, Carol realized David wasn't bluffing. She could either keep punishing us and risk losing her son's presence entirely, or drop it. Slowly, the digs got fewer. The guilt trips less frequent. Not gone, but tolerable. The family shifts. Here's the twist I didn't expect. Carol's cousins, Lisa 35F and Mike 33M, stepped up more than they ever had before. Lisa pulled me aside one afternoon and said something that almost made me cry. "Lisa, I think Carol just assumed you and David would always be there, no matter what. Seeing you put your foot down made me realize how unfair that was. We should have been helping more all along." Since then, Lisa has been driving Carol to appointments, and even Marlene 68F, Carol's sister, started pitching in with meal prep. For the first time in years, the entire burden isn't solely on David. Jennifer 44F, my S-Gel, is another story. She's still salty and distant. She'll occasionally call to say something snide like, "Oh, must be nice to put yourself first," but we've stopped engaging. David barely talks to her now, and honestly, neither of us miss the drama. The marriage reset. I cannot overstate how much this whole ordeal strengthened our marriage. Before, David and I were always so drained, caught between work stress and family obligations. After the trip, and after surviving Carol's guilt storm, we finally started putting each other first. We go on regular date nights now. We've started planning smaller weekend trips, just for us. And the biggest change? We actually talk about boundaries and stick to them. It feels liberating to say no when something isn't fair. Where we are now, Carol is doing fine health-wise. Emotionally, she's still a little bitter, but it's manageable. She knows if she pushes too hard, David will pull back, so she treads more carefully. Lisa and Mike are more involved. Marlene helps when she can. Jennifer can stew in her resentment all she wants, but we've decided her opinion doesn't matter in how we live our lives. And us? We're happy. Truly happy. Looking back, if we had canceled that trip, I know we'd be miserable right now. It would have set the precedent that Carol could guilt us into anything, no matter how unreasonable. Instead, we drew a line, and while it was painful, it ended up shifting the entire family dynamic. So, to answer the original AITA question, no, we weren't the assholes. We were two burned-out people protecting our sanity and our marriage. And for once, we didn't set ourselves on fire to keep someone else warm. Stories number 2. I told my dad to never speak to me again the day my son died. My 30F dad M57 invited for Christmas this year, and usually this has not been a problem for us to attend, since he only lived 1 hour away. But he just bought a new house which is 3 hours away by car, which turns out to be a bit of an issue for us for the following reasons. We have a 15-month-old son, and last time we visited my dad for a day trip, my son was inconsolable the entire way, just wanting to get out of his car seat. This means another 6 hours to look forward to driving back and forward to my dad's house. And just thinking about that makes me stressed out for my son. We do not have a car. We live in a city that doesn't require it, and we bike and take public transport. This means we will have to rent a car to get there, which is incredibly expensive in our country. We do not have a travel bed for my son, who still needs to sleep in a crib for safety reasons. My dad does not have a crib in his house. This means we need to go out and buy a crib just to use that one time in my dad's house. As a solution, I offered that we could celebrate Christmas at our place. But my dad, who has a car and no small children, refuses, without giving any reasons. I've told my dad that for my son's sake and for our sanity's sake, we cannot attend Christmas in his house this year. This has left him very upset, claiming that I am keeping his grandchild from him and that families should stay together at Christmas. Just for info, in my country, Christmas and opening presents is in the evening, which is why we would have to stay for the night. Title: Aita for not forgiving my parents' reaction to me being sexually abused as a child. When I 30F was 6 to 11 years old, I was sexually abused by my maternal grandfather. I never told my parents while it was going on, since I simply did not understand what was going on and I didn't know it was wrong. It was never intercourse, but a lot of inappropriate touching. Mostly him telling me to touch his private parts. At least that is what I remember. It all stopped when my grandfather died when I was 11. I kept what happened a secret to my family for a long time. I think it was a mix of shame and fear that kept me from saying the truth. But when I turned 16, I finally gathered up the courage and told them. I told my mom first, as she was always the one I could talk to about sensitive subjects. But to my shock and dismay, her first reaction was disbelief. She simply could not understand how her dad, who was a well-loved figure in our family, could do such a thing. He never abused me, she said. She also told me she would talk to my dad about it, so I assumed she did. Fast forward 3 weeks after. I bring what happened up in a conversation with my dad, and he is immediately shocked. Turns out my mom never told him. This progresses into a fight between my parents, and after that day, it was never spoken of again. My mom later passed away from cancer. I brought the whole situation up with my dad the other day. I told him that I was disappointed in them as parents and how I felt as if they failed me. I told him that if this was my child, I would at least talk to them and most likely gotten a therapist involved. My dad told me that I never expressed a need for a therapist, so he did not know that I needed one. And I told him that was a child and had no idea what I needed and that my parents should have guided me. So am I TA for being angry at my parents even though I did not express a need for help? My son of 32 weeks passed away very recently. We knew it was going to happen, so we invited our closest family to say goodbye to him at the hospital. I've always had a very difficult relationship with my dad, but I decided that this was an important thing for him to be a part of. I also needed someone who could take care of our 3-year-old son at home while we were at the hospital, and I was giving birth to our stillborn son. He calls me the day before he arrives, asking when I expect to give birth. I tell him that I do not know exactly, since the birth is induced, and it can take anywhere between hours to days for my body to react to the medication. He responds, "Well, I need to let my work know how long I'll be away, so I need a better time frame than that." I repeat myself, as I literally do not know when I'll go into labor, but he keeps pressing me for a more precise answer with quotes like, "The hospital must know, just ask a doctor, they will know," etc. In the end, my husband has to grab the phone and tell my dad to figure it out with his work. My dad then arrives with his girlfriend and is, throughout the entire day, extremely visibly distraught. I think to myself, wow, he really cares, and I feel incredibly bad for him. But I also notice some strange behavior from him. Throughout the 3 hours he was there, He just places himself in a corner in a complete zombie state. He doesn't once console me or my husband. He doesn't once take the initiative to go for a walk with our 3-year-old son or talk to him. He just sits there without a single word, and I have to handle my son while I am also trying to arrange paperwork with the hospital about my stillborn baby. The only thing my dad tells me that day is, "You should probably go home to 3-year-old's name. He is very confused and he needs you." At this point, I had just given birth to my son 3 hours prior, and prior to that been hospitalized for bleeding. My dad then ends up walking out of the room and taking the elevator down. My husband, being a bit worried about him, follows and asks him what is going on. My dad then looks at him and says, "Girlfriend's name, and I broke up." My husband doesn't react much with other than telling him he is sorry. My husband also decides to keep it from me for the time being because I am dealing with enough grief at that point. Later in the day, we all return home. My dad still sitting motionless on the couch, staring into the room. His girlfriend gets up to use the bathroom, and he then turns to me with tears in his eyes and drops the bomb on me as well. "We broke up, but I don't want to talk about it right now." Clearly, he was trying to keep this announcement a secret from his now ex since he waited to tell me until she left the room. In that moment, I can't take it anymore. I glare at him and I tell him, "I cannot handle this right now and I think you need to leave. Don't contact me." I needed my dad that day. My mom passed away some time ago, and my husband's parents live halfway across the world. I needed my dad more than I had ever needed him. And instead of embracing me, telling me he loves me, telling me he loves our son, comforting me, he is lost in his own grief over his fucking breakup. I don't even know if a single tear that day was shed for my son. At the same time, I can't help but feel bad for him. But couldn't he have waited a couple of days to tell me about this? Why did I need to know it on that day? I'm probably just an asshole, I really don't know, but I needed to vent it out. Some of comments. Commenter: "I am so sorry for everything you, your husband, and your 3-year-old son are going through. You just needed your dad to be your dad. How is your other son doing?" Reply: "He is being a 3-year-old and is being such a brave and amazing little boy. I adore him 1,000 times more than I ever have, and I am showering him with love. He is no doubt affected by it. But I hope we can heal together as a family, and I can give him space to grieve in his own way." Commenter: "Had your dad always been like this? Between how he behaved on the phone and how he behaved at the hospital, your dad strikes me as a very selfish person. I think that you were well within your rights to tell your dad to leave and to not contact you. I'm sorry for your loss." Reply: "We have a very, very strained relationship. When I lost my mom as a teenager, he also engulfed himself in grief and forgot to care for his 4 kids. I had to arrange my mom's funeral because he couldn't handle it. He never once asked how his kids were doing, never once checked in on us." Commenter: "You need to ask yourself why your husband wasn't able to tackle the administrative tasks of form filing and child minding. I imagine that if your husband was in the middle of a health crisis that you wouldn't hand him a clipboard and a 2-year-old. Reply: "Thank you. Just to clear it up, in that moment my husband was talking to a photographer about how to arrange the photos of our son. He was in another room and did not see them handing me the paperwork." Commenter: "If they broke up, why did they come to the hospital together?" Reply: "I ask myself the same question." Commenter: "Probably because the ex has a heart and wanted to be there for you in a small way." Reply: "Perhaps. She is genuinely a really sweet person, and she has been there for my son more than my dad ever has, so it could be her wanting to be there and support us." To another commenter: "I can see your point. I am not quite sure when they broke up in the process, but it must have been relatively close to my son's passing. I don't know what happened between them. My dad has some anger issues and some extreme outbursts, and perhaps she had enough and had to step out despite the tragic circumstances. I've gotten to know her quite well over the years, and although I can't claim to know her to the core, I would be extremely surprised if she decided to break up with him during this time if it wasn't highly necessary. I hope to talk to her one of these days to understand what happened. I do have sympathy for the double whammy my dad was hit with. However, if my child ever went through something like this, I can guarantee that the world could be falling apart, and that would not stop me from being there to hug and hold my own child. Whether she broke up with him close to the event or not, I do blame my dad for boy being capable of sitting aside his own shit for 3 hours to be there and be present." Update: My dad called today 4 times. I did not want to talk to him, so I asked my husband if he could do it. I was genuinely afraid something had happened. My dad used 30 seconds on asking how we are. The conversation then immediately turned into him complaining about his now ex. When he started telling my husband about how he has already signed up for a dating site, because now he needs to find a new girlfriend, he hung up. My dad called my grandmother and complained about how difficult I was being during his visit at the hospital because I didn't ask why he was so sad. I have blocked my dad from every possible contact, and I will never let him near my family again. Stories number 3. Aita for refusing to babysit my nephews again for free. I'm 29F, child-free by choice. My sister C is 27F, has 2 boys ages 3, 5 and 2. We live close to each other, and I've been in their lives since the beginning. We are each other's only family. We come from a broken and dysfunctional family. I love the boys, but they are a lot of work, especially on top of my own career in social work and my personal reasons for not wanting kids of my own. I watch them help out babysit probably 10 to 20 hours a week currently, and it's getting exhausting. The times I've been needed have slowly increased, and over the last 7-ish months it's been like this. At first, it was C looking for a part-time job, going to mandated courses to get unemployment, occasional movie nights with friends, etc., which I was okay with. Now I spend most of my free time at their house. Lately the cause has been that her best friend's mom is dying, and C needs to be there. She's a single mom, and I get that it's hard. But recently I feel like she's using me, and I rarely see my fiancé as we both work shifts that change all the time. Sometimes when she's asked me to watch them and I've had some other plans, C sends me a voice message of the boys crying, missing me, guilt-tripping me, saying it's such a shame I care more about myself than them, telling me she would ask someone else if she had anyone else to ask, saying really mean things about me being selfish for wanting to enjoy date night when she has to choose between her kids and her best friend's dying mom. I could handle if that's all it was, but now it's also affecting the next time we meet. When I get there, the house is a mess, there's nothing to eat, and they happen to have a day for a shower/bath, or C casually mentions I need to put together a gym bag or something similar for them for the next day. These weird, extra things that are obviously revenge. The first time this happened I assumed she'd be grateful I helped where I could, but it wouldn't be an issue if I didn't have time to do everything. I was quickly proven wrong. Before she got home she casually asked if I had done the extra things, and when I hadn't, not all anyway, she suddenly had to stay a little later. This happened a few times, and I'm ashamed to admit it took me too long to understand what was happening. I was just glad she was updating me on her estimated arrival timer. She usually never did that. Another thing she does for revenge, I feel like, could be my exhausted interpretation, is not prepare meals for the kids, or even leave money. When I go to the store she promises to pay me back, but, you guessed it, tries to guilt me into saying she doesn't have to pay. She's also not kept her word about some things she'd promised, saying she doesn't want to do things for me if I can't help her with the boys. The excuses and backtracking on stuff start immediately if I don't do exactly what she wants. The latest example. I asked to borrow a dress for a wedding because I didn't want to buy one, and we had always borrowed each other's clothes, and she agreed. For days before the wedding I couldn't show up as fast as she wanted on a short notice, so she said I could forget about borrowing the dress. She'd forgotten she'd needed herself. I had to panic buy one. Last month she promised to pick me up after leaving my car for some maintenance, and she didn't show up. I was stranded. Took her 5 hours to answer her phone and get there. She also had the audacity to huff and puff about how inconvenient it was she had to drive me. Sorry this is so long, but it's been mind-blowing writing this all down and seeing what I'm putting up with. I'm such a doormat. So yesterday I told her I couldn't come today when she called desperately needing me to watch the boys for the evening. And when she started her tirade of me being selfish, I kind of just snapped. I told her to shut up and listen. If she thought I was that horrible of a human and so selfish, she had 2 options. Either stop relying on me so much and letting her kids be exposed to my selfishness, or I'll really start being selfish and will not watch them free of charge ever again. Never do anything extra without being compensated. She hung up without saying anything. After I had stopped shaking, I hate confrontation. As you can imagine, I started to really panic as I feel like I just lost my last remaining family member. My fiancé said it was a long time coming and I should have stood up for myself ages ago, but he's biased as he loves me. I don't really have time for proper friends outside work colleagues, so I don't know who else to ask if I made the biggest mistake of my life. What if I don't see my nephews again? What if I had just done it a bit longer and she'd eased a bit? Aita for telling her to choose between my options? ETA. My 2 examples seem like I ask her or need her for stuff often, which I don't. The promises she breaks can be just as simple as having food for the boys for when I'm with them. The dress and leaving me without a ride are just specific events that were easier to explain, but I quickly realized it's not accurate. Comments. Commenter 1. You lost an abuser, not a family member. This is an abusive relationship, and she uses every tool of an abuser to control you and your behavior. What she has been doing to you is verbal, psychological, and financial abuse. It is beyond messed up and isn't love. Please set your hard boundaries and stand by them. She needs the reality check, and you deserve not to be used and abused. Block her so you don't go back. Commenter 2. 100% agree with this. And let's not forget the emotional blackmail with those voice notes of your nephews crying about how much they love and miss you. Your fiancé is right. You needed to cut her off a long time ago. She needs to be put on a serious timeout so she can learn that her abusive behavior has consequences. She needs to get herself some serious help. And you do too, hon. If you're not already in therapy, I'd recommend seeking it out so you can learn how to process these feelings and learn how to set firm boundaries and to stand up for yourself. It sounds like your fiancé would be willing to help you work on those things and support you when things are difficult. Block your sister. Don't pander to her anymore. She needs to learn to be a full-time MOM, not a part-time MOM. You did not choose to birth those tiny humans. She did. It's time for her to step up and stop relying on you. Please see a therapist to help you navigate this time and process all you've been through. NTA. Commenter 3. You know that not seeing your nephews again is never going to happen. Your selfish sister has been taking advantage of you for too long, and to her, your standing up for yourself is just a temporary setback in her manipulations. The only way her behavior is going to change is when yours changes. You need to set some clear boundaries and follow them with solid expectations of how you expect her to treat you. For example, guilt-tripping, name-calling, accusations, etc. are to end. If she tries any of these manipulative tactics, there will be clear consequences, and you need to follow through. If you tell her you can't babysit and she starts the guilt, you tell her something like no babysitting for a month because of her behavior. Altering your behavior is the only way you can change hers. Oh, and all those times she needs to comfort her friend with the dying mother. You realize those are just BS. She wants free from kids' time and is just trying to play on your empathy. Your sister is a Class A asshole. Reply. Thank you. I feel so stupid. I only thought about the friend's mom thing being BS like last week. I asked see how she was doing, and she took a second too long to remember what I was talking about. Update. TLDR. My 29F sister C27F has 2 boys, 3.5 and 2, and C uses me as a free babysitter almost every day. It's gotten worse with her name calling me if I have other plans and her punishing me and the kids next time by leaving the house messy and not preparing food. Only coming home after I've done what she demanded: clean, cook, bath time, etc. I finally told her I can't do this anymore and made her choose to either go low contact or agree to my terms watching the boys in the future. Update. A lot has happened. I'm trying to write concisely. During the first 24 hours after me telling her that ultimatum, I decided not to answer her calls or texts to let her cool down. She called 77 times, sent over 100 texts and voice messages. They're mostly just her calling me a horrible person who abandons her family. I outlined a few rules with my fiancé's help for the future if she comes to her senses and agrees to my terms. I wanted them to be ready, even though it looked like she will never come around. I had conditions like I could watch them up to 3 times in 2 weeks, not more than 4 hours at a time. Meals needed to be provided. No bath time or bedtime. I'm not spending any money. I got messages from an unknown number. Fiancé says it's an app or something saying how horrible of a sister I am because now they have to watch their mom die alone without C there to comfort them. Based on the suspicions I had earlier and the language similarities, I think this was my sister pretending to be her friend. I talked to my supervisor on Friday afternoon and asked for her opinion. I first asked if it was okay to talk about personal stuff, and she was great about it. I don't work with children, and CPS has never been a part of my work, so I wanted to double-check with someone more senior. We made a report together on C. The supervisor said it's better to do so, especially now that it's escalated, and she might retaliate against me by hurting the boys in some way, as she's obviously not above that. I'm probably going to give her next week to cool off before resuming contact, and depending on what the messages/voice messages say then, I might contact her. If they are as abusive as now, I probably won't respond at all. It makes me unbelievably upset, but I hope the boys will also get a more stable environment without me, as she's using them as pawns with me. Fiancé says hello and wants everyone to know he's here for me, and wants to assure everyone I'm not really that bad of a doormat, just for C for some reason. I'm looking into concealing through my work. It's too expensive out of pocket. Thanks for the messages and the shift kicks I obviously needed. For some reason, I've become blind to my sister's behavior and was only concerned whether I'd lose the boys from my life. Probably will update when I resume contact with my sister if people want to know how it goes. New update. Boring update, but my fiancé unblocked C for a few hours to see if she was still messaging abusive stuff. She was. Nothing new there. CPS called and asked for more info, which I provided. They wanted to know specific dates and whether I had proof, and I sent them a lot of screenshots of messages with C. I chose to make the report with my name on it, as I felt like it added credibility. And it also kind of felt like a punishment for me to use my name, especially after waiting so long to make the report, meaning my sister could now also know for sure it was me who made the report, and I'd face the consequences for it. I've had one Zoom appointment with a psychologist through my work. It's been great so far, and I already got homework on boundaries. Seems fast, but she said they're trained to move quickly as we are usually provided 5 visits, and there should be progress in that time. I haven't heard from C or the kids other than the abusive messages. I'm ashamed to say I've driven by the house a couple of times just to see if everything looks normal, and it does. I had a talk with my fiancé after a commenter suggested the kids might need to be removed from C, and if we were planning on whatever if it came to that. We aren't. We don't want kids, and have known that from the beginning. The day-to-day life as a family with kids sounds absolutely horrible, to be honest. There's nothing that appeals to us. We don't even want pets. We would become resentful and probably would lose ourselves in the process if we went there. I don't know how much there is to update after this. Maybe if the contact resumes. But honestly, I'm afraid to send her anything as she's just insulting me. I don't think she'd even really read what I wrote if I tried. Another update, February 26th. Today was my birthday. I'm 30. Yay, and I just had an ordinary work day. When I got home, my sister was waiting for me. Fiancé wasn't home yet. C congratulated me and actually seemed normal at first, but when I couldn't behave like I normally would, attentive, asking how I could help her, etc., she got irritated. She said she'd known I never loved the boys and was only jealous I didn't have kids. I tried to make them love me more, and then I'd falsify reports to CPS and get custody. I actually kind of laughed. It was so ridiculous. I told her I don't even want kids and wouldn't take hers even if they were offered. Might have been a cruel thing to say, but I'm just so tired. She somehow got angrier and saying how horrible the boys will now feel knowing I'd abandoned them and proving I didn't love them. I knew I couldn't win with her, so I just asked why she was here and where the kids were. She said their whereabouts were none of my business, fair enough, and she was here to tell me I'd never see them again. I'd accepted that as a possibility or even probable, so I didn't really react, which made her even angrier. She tried to grab me, but I'd stood about 6 feet away so she couldn't reach me, and I just ran inside the building and closed the door behind me. Luckily, it locks automatically. She followed, so I shouted through the door that I would call the police if she didn't leave. She kicked the door and left without saying anything. I went to our apartment and sat on the floor. My hands were shaking so I couldn't write, but I made a voice recording on my phone on everything in case I need to contact the police or a lawyer or something. After around 20 minutes, just breathing, the door lock rattled, and I got really scared until I understood it was my fiancé getting home from work. I was still on the floor, so he obviously freaked out. I told him everything, and he said we should make a police report and also update the CPS people about C's irregular behavior. I still feel weirded out reporting her because we endured much worse as kids and don't think anyone reported our parents. But my fiancé asked if I would make this report at work if it was someone else's family. I said it's not fair as I don't work with kids for this exact reason, but I guess I'd report it. It's getting late and I can't sleep, worrying about making the police report tomorrow and wondering what to tell the CPS. I guess I'll explain the whole thing and they decide what's relevant. Oh, CPS let us know on Monday. I think that my sister is under investigation and they gave me the contact info for their caseworker, so at least that report will be easy to make. Update. Sorry it took a while, but I've been trying to keep busy taking extra shifts at work as I miss the boys. I haven't heard from them at all since my sister kicked at our door. CPS has been in contact a few times, but as we let them know we wouldn't be willing to take the boys unless absolutely necessary, not even for a short foster placement. they haven't been telling us as much about their situation. It feels like we don't know much anymore, but I guess we're outsiders now, so I get it. The family court date is set for next month, and we're debating whether to ask if we can go, but I honestly think they wouldn't allow it now, as we have nothing to do with the solution. I don't know whether we would have been able to attend even if we agreed to foster them. Usually the family courts here are quite closed. As far as the boys go, I've accepted I'll probably never see them again. I wish that if I can keep tabs on them, I can reintroduce myself when they're 10 years or so older and have their own phones, etc. It's far away, but I have to have something to look forward to. CPS is actively still investigating. Until they stopped telling us anything, it sounded quite sure that at least a short foster placement was needed. My sister failed to show up to mandatory meetings, wasn't available when they tried to reach out to her, and at least once he arrived at the house without the kids just as the CPS came by, and they realized the kids had been home alone for the time C was gone. They contacted me to ask if I knew where my sister was, and for how long, but I had stopped talking to her at that point. She said she'd just dropped off something the street over, so she was gone for less than 3 minutes. I don't know if I believe that, and the CPS didn't think so either. The reason we don't want/can't take the boys is mainly our health. I have a chronic illness and my fiancé is in a wheelchair. We live in a one-bedroom apartment, and having the boys' beds and stuff would make it inaccessible for a wheelchair, and that's just not okay. In addition, we just don't want kids at all. I don't think I'd be a great parent, and can't expect my fiancé to parent either, as he didn't sign up for it either. I hope the boys are small enough so that they are easy to place, whether temporarily or permanently. It breaks my heart, but at the same time I just can't do it. Thanks for the well wishes, and ask me if you have any questions. Update. Apparently the first court date came and went without my sister there. She didn't notify them either. She just didn't show up. The next date was set for late July, and they issued fines if she didn't show up again, and sent a certified letter telling her that if she's not present, the case can still move forward. They wanted to make sure she wasn't just trying to delay things by staying away. The boys were placed together with a family, and they resumed contact with us and wanted us to meet them. They are now 4 and almost 3 years old. It had been several weeks, around 10, since we last met, so they were shy at the beginning, but I think at least the older one recognized us. They were timid and quiet, but I guess they haven't settled in yet. This family is planning on having them as long as needed, and I'm glad. They looked healthier, gained some weight, and overall, just better color of skin, etc. I hadn't even noticed they looked bad before, but now with the improvement the difference is clear. The July court date also came, and went with no word from my sister, so then the court had to decide if they make the decisions without her, and consider her as a parent who abandoned their kids, arrest and hold her until the next court date, or send another invitation to show up. To my knowledge, we're still waiting on their decision. Apparently, it's not common to have family court about custody issues with no legal guardians/parents present. Who knew? I just wish this was all over, obviously, but it's not my call to make, so I'm just focusing on building a relationship with the boys. I see them around once a week, either alone or with my fiancé. We could apply to see them without supervision, but have no need to. We understand the boys need to be protected, as they have practically no one. We still think we did the right thing by not taking them in. Fiancé had a scary summer with pneumonia, and we wouldn't have been able to be with the boys. We're not allowed in the court per se, but as the boys' closest relative who keeps in touch, the CPS keeps us informed enough, especially now as the visitation with them resumed. I'm content with how the things are. I wish none of this happened, and I feel really guilty, as it seems my sister's mental health was tolerable before I started to push back, and now she's unrecognizable. Not that I've seen her in months, but still. My fiancé said he thinks the breakdown was inevitable and just happened to happen now. Thanks for the well wishes and messages. Ask anything in the comments. I'll be around for a few days, hopefully responding. Comments. Commenter. Your fiancé is right. You didn't cause this. You just stopped being the dam holding back the inevitable flood. It's so good to hear the boys are healthier and that you're building a relationship with them. That's the most important part of this whole mess. Commenter. Agree. You didn't break your sister. You just stopped carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. Commenter. Thank you for the update. I'm glad they seem to be thriving. As horrible as all of that was for you, that was the right decision for all of you involved. Wonderful that you're able to resume your relationship with the boys. Has anyone else in your family heard from your sister? Regardless, this seems to be best for both her and the children. Reply. We have no family. All dead. The rest assumed dead or gone some other way. We last saw any of them when I started school. That's why it was on me to handle the situation. They could have easily disappeared as mom and two small kids. Stories number 4. Aita for leaving my friend stranded at a wedding because she was treating me like a free chauffeur. So, buckle up, because this turned into way more drama than I expected. Last weekend, I 29F went to a wedding 2 towns over. I was invited by the bride, who's an old college friend of mine. My friend Samantha 30F, but everyone calls her Sam, was also invited. The thing is, Sam doesn't drive. She hasn't had a car in years, and honestly, she leans on people a lot to get around. She asked if I could give her a ride to the wedding and back. I thought, no big deal. I was going solo, and I figured it would be nice to have company on the road. The venue was about 90 minutes away, so it wasn't exactly next door, but I said yes because that's just what friends do, right? The wedding. We get there, and right away Sam vanishes. Like, she didn't even walk in with me. As soon as we parked and got out, she spotted a group of people she vaguely knew and drifted off. At first, I brushed it off. Weddings are social, and everyone wants to mingle. But here's the thing. She didn't check in with me once. Not a hey, want to meet so-and-so? Not even a wave across the room. Nothing. It was like I had ceased to exist the second we arrived. The ceremony was beautiful. I sat alone, clapping politely, while Sam was 2 rows ahead laughing with strangers. At the reception, it got worse. I texted her saying, "Hey, I grabbed a table for us." No response. I ended up sitting at a table by myself while couples, friends, and families grouped up around me. At one point, I literally saw Sam at another table taking selfies with people I didn't know. That sting of embarrassment? Yeah, it sucked. The reception. Hours went by. I made small talk with the people around me, but it was awkward being the random solo guest. Sam was clearly having the time of her life, laughing, dancing, chatting up anyone who crossed her path. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, wait a second, didn't I just drive her 90 minutes here? Didn't she promise we'd hang out? By 11 p.m., I was exhausted. I'm not really a night owl, and I knew I had a long drive back. I texted her, "Hey, I'm getting tired. Thinking of heading out soon." No response. I waited 30 minutes, nursing a flat Diet Coke, scrolling my phone like some awkward wallflower. Around 11:30, I texted again, "Heading out in 10 if you want to ride back." Still nothing. I even walked around the venue looking for her, but the place was packed, music was loud, and honestly, I felt done. I didn't want to be the free chauffeur she could ignore until it was convenient. So, I left. The fallout. I got home a little after midnight, exhausted but honestly relieved to be away from the awkwardness. At 12:45 a.m., my phone buzzes. "Sam, hey, where are you?" I didn't reply. Next morning, my phone blows up. Sam called me, furious. She was screaming that I abandoned her, that she had to beg some random guest for a ride home, and that I was selfish and heartless. I stayed calm and told her, "Sam, you didn't check in with me once all night. I texted you multiple times, waited, and even walked around looking for you. You completely ignored me. I'm not your Uber driver. It's basic courtesy to keep track of the person who brought you when you rely on them to get home." She immediately snapped back, "Sam, so I'm not allowed to have fun without you? You punished me because I was enjoying myself." I told her it wasn't about her having fun. It was about respect. She got dead quiet, and then hung up. The aftermath. Now here's where it gets messy. Some of our mutual friends found out. Apparently, Sam told them I stranded her on purpose. A couple of them think I should have at least found her before leaving. One even said, "You did agree to take her both ways. It was your responsibility." That stung, because technically yes, I had agreed to bring her home. But I also feel like she broke the social contract by treating me like disposable transportation. If the roles were reversed, I would have checked in, texted, or at the very least introduced her to people so she wasn't isolated. Instead, she ditched me, ignored my texts, and expected me to wait around until she was ready. So now I'm sitting here, torn. On one hand, yeah, maybe I could have waited longer. On the other hand, I'm not her babysitter. So Reddit. Aita for leaving without her after she ignored me all night? Update. Aita for leaving my friend stranded at a wedding because she was treating me like a free chauffeur? Hi Reddit. Wow. I didn't expect my original post to blow up the way it did. I read through a ton of the comments, and honestly, it helped me sort through my feelings a lot. Most people agreed that while technically I did agree to bring Sam back, she also had a responsibility to communicate and not treat me like an invisible Uber. Anyway, here's what happened since then. The immediate aftermath. After I posted, I hadn't spoken to Sam for about 3 days. She was still mad, and I was still stewing over the way she treated me. Then she finally texted me, "Sam, I can't believe you humiliated me like that. Everyone at the wedding was asking what happened, and I looked like an idiot." I didn't respond right away, because honestly, that text just made me roll my eyes. She was the one who left me sitting alone all night, and yet somehow she's the victim? The next day, we ended up on a call because one of our mutual friends, Hannah, suggested we at least clear the air. Sam's version of the story was wild. She told me she didn't see my texts because she was busy having fun and that I should have been more patient. When I brought up how she ditched me from the moment we arrived, she brushed it off with, "Sam, I didn't think you'd care. You're an independent person. You don't need me holding your hand." That part actually stung. Like, sure, I can handle myself, but I didn't agree to drive 3 hours round trip just to be ignored and then guilt-tripped. Mutual friends weigh in. Things got messy with our friend group. Tyler, remember, the one who said I should have driven her back no matter what, doubled down. He told me, "Tyler, look, you're technically in the wrong. You agreed to drive her. Once you make a commitment like that, you should follow through. It's just common decency." But Hannah and a couple of others sided with me. They said Sam was acting entitled and that if she wanted a guaranteed ride, she should have respected my time. It basically split our friend group down the middle. Now whenever we hang out, it feels tense. Sam still shows up like nothing's wrong, but she'll throw little digs at me. For example, last weekend we were all at brunch, and when the server asked if we needed separate checks, Sam smirked and said, "Sam, yeah, I better not rely on Jessica for anything." Learn my lesson. It was so passive-aggressive that the whole table went quiet. The part that really got me. Here's where I started questioning the friendship entirely. I found out from Lauren the bride that Sam actually told people at the wedding that I abandoned her on purpose to teach her a lesson. That blew my mind. I left after 2 ignored texts, 30 minutes of waiting, and walking around looking for her. How does that turn into me plotting some elaborate lesson? Lauren straight up told me, "Lauren, honestly, Jessica, people noticed how she was ignoring you all night. It wasn't subtle. Some folks even asked me if you two were fighting." So yeah, apparently I wasn't imagining things. Where we stand now. After that, I sent Sam one last message. I told her, "Look, I don't think this friendship is working anymore. You don't respect my time. You twist the story to make me the villain, and you've turned mutual friends against me. I can forgive people, but I can't keep being treated like this. I think it's best if we take a step back." Her response? "Sam, wow. So you're just going to throw away 7 years of friendship over one misunderstanding?" Got it. I didn't reply. Since then, I've been distancing myself. I've hung out with Hannah and a few others separately, but when Sam's in the mix, I just don't go. And honestly, it feels like a weight off my shoulders. Reflection. Here's the thing. I don't think Sam is an evil person, but she is selfish, and this whole situation made me realize how one-sided our friendship had become. She doesn't drive, doesn't chip in for gas, and always expects others to adjust for her. The wedding just highlighted the bigger issue. She sees people as conveniences, not equals. I used to feel guilty about leaving her that night, but after seeing how she's handled it since, I don't anymore. If anything, I feel like it showed me the true nature of our friendship, and it wasn't worth saving. So yeah, that's where things stand. I'm moving on. I've got better friends, and I'm not wasting energy on someone who thinks I'm just a chauffeur with feelings optional. And to answer the original question, no, I don't think I'm the asshole anymore. Final update. Months later, Aita for leaving my friend stranded at a wedding because she was treating me like a free chauffeur? Hey Reddit, it's been about 6 months since the wedding night fiasco, and a few people messaged me asking for closure. Honestly, I didn't think there'd be much to say, but life has a way of tying up loose ends, and Sam popped back up in a way I didn't expect. What happened after I distanced myself? After my last update, I stuck to my boundaries. I stopped inviting Sam to things, stopped responding to her digs, and basically let the friendship fizzle out. Our mutual friends eventually adjusted. Sometimes we hung out as a group, but more often, I'd just do smaller get-togethers with Hannah and Lauren. Sam never apologized. Not once. Instead, she leaned into this narrative that I was the one who abandoned her after years of friendship. I heard through the grapevine that she called me dramatic and unreliable, which is funny because those are literally her strongest qualities. The unexpected reunion. Fast forward to last month. Lauren the bride from the wedding had a big housewarming party. I went, not even thinking about Sam, but of course she was there. The second I walked in, I saw her across the room. She spotted me too, and I swear I could feel the tension from 20 feet away. For the first hour, we stayed on opposite sides of the party. But eventually, alcohol and proximity did their thing, and we ended up in the kitchen at the same time. She gave me this tight smile and said, "Sam, so still mad about the wedding?" I just laughed because really? 6 months later, and that's the opener? I told her, I'm not mad anymore. I just don't think we work as friends. You showed me who you are that night, and since then, her face dropped. She tried to say I blew things out of proportion and that she didn't mean to make me feel disposable. But then she ruined it by adding, "Sam, I just don't think it was worth ending a friendship over. You could have been more understanding." That was my answer right there. No accountability, just shifting the blame. The part that shocked me. Here's the kicker. Later in the evening, Hannah pulled me aside and told me something. Apparently, Sam had actually been bragging to some people a few weeks ago that she never apologized because she thought I'd eventually come crawling back. That was the nail in the coffin for me. Where things stand now. After that night, I blocked her on social media. Not in a dramatic, "I hate you" way, just in a, "I don't need this energy in my life anymore" way. Mutual friends mostly stopped bringing her around me because, in their words, Sam refuses to let it go. Funny enough, several people in our group privately admitted they've had similar experiences with Sam, her using them for rides, favors, or emotional dumping, then ghosting when she didn't need anything. So I guess I just hit my breaking point first. Reflection, months later. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes people show you their true colors in small ways for years, and you ignore it because you don't want to believe your friend is selfish. Then one big incident, like being stranded at a wedding, makes it impossible to keep ignoring. I don't regret leaving her that night anymore. If anything, I'm glad I did, because it forced me to reevaluate our friendship. She wasn't really a friend. She was just someone who expected me to provide convenience, loyalty, and support without offering it back. Now, I spend my time with people who actually value me. Hannah and I are closer than ever. Lauren and I have reconnected a lot since her wedding, and honestly, my life feels lighter without Sam's constant drama. So to put this saga to rest, no, I wasn't the asshole. If anything, leaving Sam that night was the best decision I ever made. Stories number 5. Aita for walking out of my ILs with my daughter and leaving my husband behind because they all ganged up on me to name our son one of the family names. My husband 32M and I 31F have been married for 5 years. We have a 2-year-old daughter together, and I'm expecting our son in a few months. When we met, he told me there were some family names for the boys that everyone was encouraged to use, and he didn't want to. I told him I hated the idea of being obligated to name my kids after other people, so that worked for me. He mostly goes by his middle name too, because he felt like it allowed him his own identity instead of being another Tim in the family. We had no issues naming our daughter a non-family name. But a few weeks after we found out we were having a boy this time, and we had started making a list of names we liked, he started switching things up on me and saying we should pick one of the 3 family names. I told him I wasn't okay with that, and he was like, "Come on, it's not a big deal, and even if you don't like them, it makes everyone else happy." I asked him why the sudden switch up, and he said it was to make his family happy. And I asked him was he willing to do that at the expense of me being unhappy, and he said no. But then he asked what we could pair those names with to make it okay, and he started suggesting middle names for those 3 as first names to try and change my mind. This continued for weeks, and I told him we needed a break from baby names before we started outright fighting over this. He apologized and agreed to stopping the name talk for a few weeks. When we went back to it, he started suggesting names for our list that I just thought were awful and would never use. They were so unlike the names already on our list. And then he was like, the family names aren't so bad now, and I said the answer to them was still no. I suggested we could use them as middle names if he really wanted to, and he said we could easily use a name we love as a middle name and use the family names first. Then we were at his family's house a couple of weekends ago to celebrate his niece's birthday. It was a low-key thing and just dinner. But it turned into a shit show of everyone ganging up on me and asking why I was against the family names and could I honestly think of better names. I was told the names we liked were just okay, and some were downright awful, but these 3 family names were amazing, fabulous, full of charm, and other compliments that I felt went a bit over the top with how much emphasis was put on them basically being the 3 best boys' names to ever exist ever. My husband was joining in with them, and I was being told that I acted like giving birth made me the more important parent, and how it should matter what they and my husband want. That I can suck it up and deal with it to make him and them happy. How, as this is a boy, he should get priority in naming him. And that I'm so selfish for trying to break this wonderful family tradition. By that point, I was just done with it, and I took my daughter and went home, leaving my husband there. He was upset when he got home and asked me why I left him behind and why I stormed out like that in the first place. I told him that they all ganged up on me, so why would I stay? And I told him he wasn't being a very good or supportive husband right now, and that I wasn't in the mood to act like things were perfectly fine. He apologized since, but his family are saying I made him apologize when he didn't need to, and I acted childishly, and I'm blowing things up over a name which seems unfair. They even said it's not like it's a single name, because I have 3 to choose from, which is better than some families offer. I feel like they make it sound worse and worse to me. Like there's rules around naming babies or something. My husband and I still are working through stuff, but Aita. Stories number 6. My wife had her wild phase before me. And now that I'm finally thriving, I feel like I missed out. Am I wrong for feeling this way? I've been married to my wife for 5 years, together for 8, and we have 2 beautiful children. She's been my first everything, my first girlfriend, my first real relationship, my first in every sense. I didn't really date in high school or college because, honestly, I didn't take care of myself. I lacked confidence and didn't feel attractive, so I stayed focused on other things. My wife, on the other hand, had a more typical college experience. She had a few relationships and had her phase, as she was extremely attractive. She even did stuff with 2 guys at the same time. She was upfront about it when we started dating, and it never bothered me, although I tried to not think about it too much. Now here's the thing. Over the years, she's become quite reserved when it comes to intimacy. She says she had her wild side during college, and now that she's done with that phase, she prefers a more traditional approach to intimacy. She says she's tried everything she wanted to and knows what enjoys and what she doesn't enjoy in the bedroom. And she wants to build intimacy on love, not wild lust. And I completely respect that. I'm not trying to do something which doesn't excite her in the bedroom. But lately, I've changed. I'm in the best shape of my life, physically, mentally, emotionally. Even my family and friends are kind of shocked with how I look now. My wife loves the new me and says she finds me more attractive than ever. But to be blunt, I don't care that my wife finds me attractive, because I know I look good now. And it's not like her finding me more attractive will change anything in the bedroom department. My hormones right now are all over the place, and I can't help but feel like I missed my chance to experience that same fun side of life. I never had the exploration, the experimentation, the freedom. Now that I finally feel great about myself, that door seems closed. I brought it up with my sister, we're close, and she was surprisingly blunt. She said it's unfair that my wife got to have those experiences and now expects me to settle for less than what she once enjoyed. That hit me harder than I expected. But my sister also loves me to death and said some crazy stuff like I deserve to have an experience with at least one other woman in my life, else I'll keep resenting my wife. I love my wife. I don't want to hurt her. I'm not thinking of cheating or anything like that. But I do feel stuck between respecting her boundaries and acknowledging my own desires that never had a chance to exist. Am I wrong for feeling this way? Has anyone else been in this situation? How did you cope? Top comments. Commenter. I would be careful taking your sister's advice about your relationship. The right thing is to have an honest conversation with your wife. Be direct. Commenter. This guy's sister hates his wife. Commenter. Yup. Sister would not plant that seed against another woman without ulterior motives. Not enough info to know if sister is justified. Commenter. The grass is never greener on the other side, it is just different grass. From someone who is in the kink world. Get really clear on what it is you actually want. Every fantasy sounds great in your imagination or in porn, but whatever it is you want to explore, it will not be the same when played out with your wife or any other woman if you break up or whatever. It is a tale as old as time for a married person to have tons of ideas of what leaving their domesticated problems will be like. They think they will be swimming in pussy or men will be lining up for them. And reality is very, very different. They are often disappointed and wish they could have their marriage and family back. It would be better to talk to your wife, likely in therapy, that you feel like you need to spice things up. You won't get anywhere by just being mad at her. Update. My wife had her wild phase before me, and now that I'm finally thriving, I feel like I missed out. Am I wrong for feeling this way? Hey everyone, I posted this last night, and went to bed. I woke up a couple hours ago, read through a lot of the replies, thank you all for the honesty, and decided to have a conversation with my wife this morning. My wife and I are usually very honest with each other. I was upfront with her about how I've been feeling, specifically that I haven't been feeling very desired lately. She was surprised at first, and even a little shocked, because we're usually pretty lovey-dovey with each other. At first she thought I was joking, but I told her I was serious. She reassured me that she loves me more than she can ever put into words, and that she finds me incredibly attractive. I asked her why I have to initiate intimacy most of the time, and that seemed to hit her. She got quiet, and then told me she would make an effort to initiate more often, and even kissed me then to show she meant it. She wanted to do it there, but I rejected her and told her I wasn't done. I told her that initiating more was a start, but what I really wanted was way more than that. I opened up about how she's had the chance to explore her fantasies and experiment in her past, while I never had that chance. I told her about the attention I've been getting from other women recently, like for example 3 women at the library I go to regularly who've been very upfront with me, and how I've turned all of them down, but that it still made me think. I told her I don't feel desired at all at home, and in fact, I feel more desired at the library or park or even at work when I talk to women. Then I told her directly, I want to seriously spice up our bedroom life. I'm not talking about just small things. I told her I'm in the best shape of my life, and right now I want to feel that kind of wild lust that I never got to experience. Not in a reckless way. I just want that passion and fire, at least for the next few years while I feel this good in my skin. To my surprise, my wife was very receptive to what I said. We sat down and talked more openly than we have in a long time. I told her some of the fantasies in my head that I'd like to explore, and she actually listened and took me seriously. But then something happened that I wasn't expecting. She broke down in tears. She asked if I still found her attractive. That hurt to hear, because of course I do. I hugged her, comforted her, and told her I still find her beautiful as ever. Yes, she's gone through some body changes since giving birth, but that doesn't change how I feel about her at all. So yeah, that's probably my final update. We still have a lot to talk about, but for the first time in a while I feel heard and hopeful. Thank you all again for your input. It really gave me the push I needed to be honest with myself and with my wife. Top comments. Commenter, I have a feeling this is definitely not over. Commenter, hey guys, talked to my wife about it, and it went great. She broke down in tears and asked if I still found her attractive. I think that's a great sign. I'm about to have so much hot sex. Commenter, he'll be back posting about how he was blindsided by the divorce after things got spicier, i.e. he convinced her she needed to do things she didn't want to do to keep him happy, and she finally left. Remind me. 6 months. Stories number 7. When I take my daughter to a restaurant for a dress-up father-daughter dinner date, people assume I'm divorced. Hey Reddit, I'm Michael, 36M. Have a tradition with my daughter, Lily 8F. Once a month, I take her on a fancy dinner date. We dress up. She wears one of her little dresses, I put on a button-down and tie, and we go out to a nice restaurant in town. It started when Lily was 5. She was obsessed with princess movies and fancy balls, so I told her, how about we do our own? Ever since, it's become a standing date. Just me and her, sitting in restaurants that are maybe a little too nice for an 8-year-old, but we make it fun. We pretend to be food critics, spies in disguise, or royalty judging the kingdom's feast. Last month, she whispered in her most dramatic voice, Father, this steak is far too salty. Heads will roll. The waiter cracked up. It's silly, but it's ours. Where the problem comes in. Almost every time we go out, people assume I'm divorced, and this is my custody weekend. At first, I brushed it off when I overheard whispers from another table like, look, it must be his weekend with her. Whatever, strangers can think what they want. But it's gotten more direct. A few times, women, always women, for some reason have stopped by our table and said things like, she's lucky you're so involved even after the split. It's wonderful to see dads stepping up during their weekends. And the one that really made me mad. Last week, Lily went to the restroom, and a woman cornered her in there. She asked, so is it daddy's weekend? Do you see mommy tomorrow? Lily came back looking so confused. She asked me, Dad, what did she mean? Do you and mom not live together? For context, I am very much married. My wife, Emily 34F, fully supports this tradition. She usually waves us off, takes a quiet evening to herself, and sometimes even helps Lily pick out her dress. We're not divorced, separated, or having issues. Why it bothers me. It's not just that strangers assume. I get that divorced parents doing dinner dates is common. It's the fact that they feel the need to say something out loud, directly to me or my daughter. Why can't people just keep it to themselves? Why make my kid question her family situation? When it happened in the restroom, I was fuming. I didn't confront the woman because I didn't want to cause a scene in front of Lily, but I really wanted to ask, do you go around quizzing every child about their parents' marital status? Or just when you see a dad out alone with his daughter? A conversation with Emily. When we got home, I told Emily what happened. She sighed and said, you know, if I was the one doing these dinners, no one would say a word. But because you're a dad, people assume it's unusual. Either you're divorced, or you're babysitting instead of parenting. And she's right. There's this unspoken assumption that moms are default caregivers and dads only step up when forced. I hate that Lily is being exposed to that mindset at such a young age. She doesn't need to think there's something abnormal about her dad wanting to spend time with her. How Lily sees it. The funny thing is, Lily doesn't care about any of that. To her, it's just a special night with dad. She told me the other day, Lily, when I grow up, I want to do fancy dinners with my kids too. That melted me. So, I'm not going to stop our tradition because of nosy strangers. If anything, it makes me more determined to keep doing it. Because she'll remember this forever. The lesson here, people of Reddit, if you see a dad out with his kid, you don't need to comment. You don't need to make assumptions. Just let them enjoy their night. I'm not divorced. I'm not doing my weekend. I'm just a dad who loves spending time with his daughter. And honestly, that should be normal. Update. People assuming I'm divorced when I take my daughter to dinner. Hey everyone, it's been a few months since my original post about taking my daughter, Lily 8F, on our monthly fancy dinner dates, and dealing with strangers assuming I was divorced or only seeing her on my weekends. I honestly didn't expect that post to get so much traction. Reading the comments, a lot of you said how wholesome our tradition is, and that gave me the motivation to double down on it. I even showed Lily a few of the wholesome comments, age-appropriate ones of course, and she grinned ear to ear. But, of course, more things have happened since then. The restaurant incident. About 2 months after I posted, Lily and I went to a new Italian place in town. She wore this sparkly blue dress Emily, my wife, had picked out, and I wore a navy blazer. We were doing our usual bit, Lily pretending to be a secret spy sampling food for a king. About halfway through, a woman at the next table leaned over and said, "It's so sweet you're doing this. Custody weekends can be hard, but she'll remember this forever." I smiled politely but said, "Actually, no custody thing. I'm married, happily, and this is just our tradition." The woman looked taken aback and awkwardly laughed like she didn't believe me. She muttered something like, "Well, either way, it's nice you're involved." That hit me wrong. Involved? I'm her father. That's not involvement. That's parenting. Lily picked up on my mood and asked in the car, "Dad, did that lady not believe you were married to Mom?" I had to explain again that some people just assume things because they're not used to seeing dads and daughters out together. She scrunched her face and said, "That's dumb. Maybe they should mind their own beeswax." Her exact words. I nearly choked laughing. Emily steps in. After that night, Emily decided she wanted to join us for one of the dinners, not to end the dad date, but just to see what the fuss was about. Sure enough, when all three of us went, nobody said a word. Suddenly, the assumptions weren't there. People saw mom, dad, and daughter, and the comments disappeared. Emily turned to me in the car and said, "See, it's not about you and Lily. It's about how people can't wrap their heads around dads being primary caregivers for even one night." She was right, and that realization made me even more protective of our tradition. The confrontation. Here's where it gets more dramatic. Last month, Lily went to the restroom during one of our dinners. When she came back, she whispered, "Dad, another lady asked me if you and Mom live in different houses." That was it. I got up, went over, and as politely as I could, I said, "Hi. I just want to let you know my daughter was confused by your question. My wife and I are happily married. This is just a dad and daughter dinner tradition. Please don't ask kids about their parents' relationship status. It's really not appropriate." The woman looked embarrassed, muttered an apology, and then avoided eye contact for the rest of her meal. I wasn't rude, but I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. Lily deserves better than to be grilled about whether her parents live together while she's washing her hands. How Lily feels now. The good news? Lily hasn't let it ruin our dates. If anything, she's grown more confident. Last week, when a hostess said, Daddy's weekend? Lily piped up before I could say a word. Nope. Daddy's my best friend, and we do this every month because it's fun. The hostess turned red and quickly apologized. I don't think Lily fully grasps how unusual people find it, but she does know it's our thing. She even told Emily, when I'm a teenager, I'm still going to fancy dinners with Dad, even if people think it's weird. Final thoughts. So yeah, the assumptions haven't stopped, but I've learned to handle it with more confidence, and I'm teaching Lily how to do the same. If anything, this whole experience has made me more determined to keep the tradition going, because someday she'll look back and remember the silly spy games, the fake food reviews, and the fact that her dad always showed up. No custody agreement required. And to the strangers who keep making comments, please, for the love of God, stop cornering kids in bathrooms about their family structure. That's weird. Final update. Years later, our father-daughter dinner dates. Hey Reddit, I didn't think I'd be back here again, but since some of you followed along years ago when I first wrote about people assuming I was divorced every time I took my daughter Lily to a restaurant, I figured I'd give you one last update. Well, Lily isn't 8 anymore. She's 16 now. She's taller than Emily and almost as tall as me. She's got her learner's permit, and she rolls her eyes at me at least once a day, standard teenager behavior, I guess. But here's the thing. We never stopped our monthly dinners. How it changed over the years. When she was 9 or 10, the dinners were still playful. We'd do our silly spy missions or rate the food like professional critics. By 12, she started picking the restaurants herself. She went through a sushi phase, a steakhouse phase, and now she's into little hole-in-the-wall places she finds on TikTok. When she turned 14, she told me, Dad, I don't want to stop, even if people think it's weird. But maybe, let's stop calling them dates. Let's call them our nights. Fair enough. I adjusted. It's her tradition just as much as mine. The assumptions eventually stopped. Funny enough, as she got older, the comments about me being divorced or on my weekend tapered off. I think people finally realized this wasn't some custody situation. It was just a dad and his daughter spending time together. But here's the kicker. When she was about 13, she overheard one of her classmates say, Your parents must be split up, right? Because you're always out with your dad. Lily came home furious and told me. I braced myself for her to say she wanted to quit the tradition because it embarrassed her. Instead, she said, Dad, let's go somewhere super fancy next time. I want everyone to know I'm proud of it. And we did. She wore a black dress, I put on a suit, and we went to the nicest place in town. Emily's role. Through all of this, Emily has been our biggest cheerleader. She jokes that she gets a night off every month, but she also reminds Lily constantly how special it is to have a dad who prioritizes her. Once, Emily said something that stuck with me. When Lily is older and dating, she's going to measure people by how they treat her. And it's because of you. I'll admit, I cried a little at that one. College talks. Now that Lily's 16, our dinner conversations have shifted. We talk about her AP classes, college applications, her dream of studying journalism. She vents about friends, school drama, and occasionally boys, though she keeps that pretty tight-lipped. At our last dinner, she looked at me and said, Dad, when I go to college, can we still do this? Like, once a month on FaceTime, and when I come home, we'll go in person. I told her yes. Always yes. Looking back, to those who doubted me years ago, those random women at restaurants, the strangers who assumed I was divorced, the people who couldn't imagine a dad just being a dad, I wish they could see Lily now. Confident, funny, smart. She knows she's loved. She knows she's worth showing up for. And honestly, that's what this was all about. So yeah, I guess this is the final update. Our tradition became more than a fun night out. It became a foundation, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thanks for following along.